Good evening, friends. My name is Hawk, and it is the night before my match in round 2 of Good Anya Mate against the mighty QT Pyrogi, who is playing the Resurrectionist faction and declared Reva Cortanis. I'm playing Explorer Society and have declared Maxine Agassi and the crew of the EVS. The strategy is raid the vaults on standard deployment, the supposedly killiest strategy of the current GG. It is paired up with an interesting pool of schemes. We've got In Your Face and Deliver a Message, which are at nice tension with each other. We've got Information Overload, a difficult scheme to pull off, and that I think I will not be taking, most likely. Protected Territory, being a somewhat easier version of Information Overload. And Ensnare, which nicely lines up with both In Your Face and Deliver a Message to encourage a lot of interaction between the teams, scheme marker placement. I am not super familiar with Reva, so I'm going to start by talking about Maxine before I talk about Reva, and then we'll talk about the map, as well as some crew building considerations, and we'll leave it at that. So Maxine Agassi, first version is very card draw centered. She has the ability to give out conditions to her team. She has a pseudo leap with Order in Chaos's Patterns in Portals trigger. She has a great gun, which both gives you additional cards and access to draw out secrets on a master level attack. However, probably the thing that she is most known for on her card is the combination of Polymath and Two Steps Ahead, allowing her to turn a little over a quarter of the cards in the game as ones, which is pretty spectacular. Being immune to a quarter of the cards in your opponent's hand or deck does feel great, and you're going to be cycling cards a lot, drawing additional cards from Age of Inspiration. She's got a lot of fun stuff going on. However, I do think she is not the absolute strongest master at In Your Face. I think she has a lot of play in vaults, but I'm less confident with her, so I am almost certainly going to be taking her title, Maxine Agassi Monomaniacal. This is the Maxine that has the tentacles and the portals and the breach, blah, 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 and the healing. She has a great demise in the form of Revivify, sort of like the story of Sun Wukong's demise. When she's killed, she can place anywhere on the center line, then she heals 4. That's as opposed to the edge of the board, which is Sun Wukong's gimmick. She gets a bonus on all of her non-melee actions when she is on the center line. This makes her very strong on diagonal deployments and quite strong on strategies like vaults, where your opponent is going to want to push forward and stand on the center line at some point. Well, she just benefits from that because she'll be hitting all of her most important triggers for free on her non-claw attacks, and she will be able to bounce around. It is often the case with Maxine that you can fire her off at the bottom of one round, get 2 good attacks off, and then at the top of the following round, even if you lose initiative, your opponent has to shut off her healing or anti-demise in order to kill her before she gets another full activation. And if her demise is not turned off and she is allowed to revivify, she simply pops back up in a safe or useful place for her to charge back in. Her main attack, Etheric Terror, targets movement, which is quite good, although not quite as good when you're facing a crew like Revanant, which is one of Rezzer's faster movement crews in some cases. But it has some wonderful triggers on it. The star of the show being, of course, Massive Tentacles. Anyone who has played Weave and Calypso, the other stars in EVS, know how good Massive Tentacles is. It's disruption, it's damage, it's wonderful. The other models in her crew that she's likely to bring along with her, Bo Fishbacher is basically stapled to the EVS keyword at this point. I don't know that I've ever seen anyone play EVS and not take it. I would love to hear if anyone has had success leaving Bo at home. But Bo just does so much for the team. He lets you cycle thanks to the combination of showboating and reconfigure. He's got Lead the Way, which lets you unpack your big beefy models very smoothly and lets you position Maxine or other models who want to really get in there well. And he's got a wonderful Plenty of Wares, which again combines so perfectly with Reconfigure to guarantee extra supplies. His bonus is nice. It's not always relevant, but it does occasionally combo with Massive Tentacles to just grate somebody to death, which is fun in my book. Lastly, we have the combination of Calypso and Dr. Beeb. I suppose technically you could bring one without the other, but I don't know anyone who does. Again, if you do it, let me know. Beeb and Calypso are the all-terrain vehicle. They're the truck of EVS. Although Calypso is only move 4, it's got a staggeringly big 50mm base and onward, which it can hit on a guarantee thanks to Beeb supplying it a reconfigure, allowing it to move up to 24 inches in a turn, since they will effectively share actions, or simply walk twice and attack 4 times. However, it's important not to forget that Dr. Beeb has his own card. It has a couple great things. Not only can you rebuild Calypso if need be, you have access to Another Man's Trash, which is in this crew a lot better than it would be elsewhere, because those low value cards are actually all 9s, which is a pretty nice place to be. You know, a 9 is not great, but a 9 will win you the game sometimes. And it guarantees all of your non-targeted actions for the most part. Now, it doesn't guarantee bleeps and sweeps, which is an amazing model, or an amazing ability if you have a suited 10 in hand for it to go off. Because resistlessly giving all models within 4 inches of a 50mm base injured 1 is amazing. Less good with Maxine 1, or Maxine 2, I will grant you, because she has primarily targets move, but we've got access to that and healing for our contracts on the modified welder. So Reva Cortanis, there are 2 versions of Reva. I never played against Reva 2 at the height of her power. I played Reva 2 exactly once in my past visit to Malifaux, and I annihilated her with Jedza 2 due to some interactions that were present at that time in my opponent's inexperience against Jedza 2. That's not going to happen here. At the moment, Reva and Reva 2 are considered to be a little lackluster, but I'm not sure why. The Reva 2's card does seem to be missing something to me. I'm not sure what it is. I do think that there is like some magical Christmas land thinking I have with Reva 2, where, I see TN12 movement dueler suffer 2 damage on pushing a pyre marker through my opponent's team, and I feel pretty great about that. Especially when it can also be used to kidnap models towards my crew or move my crew towards them. Those seem fabulous. Getting a free Lampad, I've been told never happens, but hey, Lampads are kind of cool models. I don't think they're very popular, but when they come in for effectively, the cost of an attack on a single AP on a master and you have no TN, that feels pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. She's got some healing. She's got some ability to improve the damage of other models, which is quite interesting. But I think generally people mostly favor Reva 1 for a couple of reasons. One, she's a master with a move 7. You want to be walking as little as possible on masters. Their AP is so valuable, so having a high move is great. Willpower 6, move 7, that's like great defenses into a lot of folks, including in me. She gets plus flips for free due to Channeled Flame. She can gain shielded as well as burning. Amazing. There's a lot going on that like you like here. Thanks to the interaction of her ability to just kill corpse candles at the start of her turn, and the fact that corpse candles have Demise Smoldering Heart, she just gets like free advantage every turn by creating a new pyre marker and a corpse candle off of her corpse candle. So there's like a lot to like here incrementally. And then the juice is she can arc her melee attack. Guns are great, but a melee attack is often better, and it's better especially when you have a range on it that's longer than 2 inches, which effectively, if you can arc, you can. Now, she can't engage people through this, but who really cares when she has access to a 3-4-5 at a range 10 off of any corpse or shielded. She's got pulled here or there to help with the kidnap plan. She's got Death Ascendant, which I think in this pool is kind of cool. It lines up so nicely against Ensnare as a way to clear scheme markers while populating the field with corpse markers, which your crew likes, as far as I can tell. I'm sorry for my ignorance about Reva for the Reva fans, but I'm sure it will be an education tomorrow. The action on her card, though, that I'm the most afraid of is the Unquiet Dead. I'm not sure how she sets this up, but I've no doubt she has a way. And firing off a 2 TN14 willpower duels from 2 50mm. This is like a Shockwave 2 on a 50mm pyre, right? The pyre has to be there already, so you can position around it. But often you don't have that choice. Now, I am going to be bringing some marker removal. It's intrinsic to the crew when you have Bo Fishbacher with Noodling and Reconfigure. You do not generally want to stagger your own models, but you can always hit Calypso. Since it's got all-terrain, it can't be staggered. So you do 1 damage to Calypso, you put out 2 50mm, and you clear off any one pyre that those 2 50mm can reach. That's pretty good. It also lets you sort of do something very stupid where, if you're lucky, Bo's fishing gear kind of arcs, right? You flip or cheat a moderate, and suddenly you are 2 inches plus 150mm. I'm terrible at that conversion, but it's still pretty cool. And you're just chucking out staggered, which then Maxine gets to take advantage of. Now, mostly, this is not why Bo is here. Bo is here for Lost in the Bayou, which I did not even mention earlier, which is a huge mistake. Lost in the Bayou, after model within 6 sheets fate, push it up to 1 inch in any direction after resolving the current action. That's life-saving a lot of the time, especially against a melee-focused crew, which Reva is not really, unfortunately. The other models in Reva's crew that I've been told to beware, and I've seen no reason not to, are Vincent St. Clair. He's got a Sanctified Crossbow with a built-in trigger to shove a pyre marker towards my team. That's one of the ways that Reva can get it there, I suspect. But he's also got Crit Strike on a henchman, which means his 2/3/5 ignoring incorporeal, hard to wound, and friendly fire feels like it can be sometimes a 3/4/5 with a single stone. If you have the card in hand, it's a 4/5/6. That's not Cooper's gun, but min 4. Pretty spectacular. He also has rapid fire. Now, we are talking about a lot of cost to do this, so I'm not sure we're going to see him be able to just pour out that damage, but there is a way to get around some of these questions as well, which in Rezer specifically, which is you bring Whisper and you bring a model that can pulse out focus, because the Reva crew also has access to, and let's pull up the correct model, the Shield Bearer, who has Blasphemous Ritual. It's got Blasphemous Ritual. It's got Take the Hit, hard to kill armor 1. I'm not fussed about the Shield Bearer. If I want to kill a Shield Bearer in the middle of, in order to do that, I'm pretty sure I can do it. I'm much more fussed about Gwysyn generally. Massive Tentacles, not nearly as good against a Vengeance 2 model that is incorporeal model. Just nasty. What Shield Bearers bring to you is armor 1, the ability to get shielded on a take the hit model. Bad defense, 5/5, hard to kill, and again, Blasphemous Ritual. So, especially because you've got free corpses in the form of Reva's Corpse Candle totems, which she can resummon. You pop them, as if it were a corpse candle, as if it were a corpse marker. Hooray! You pulse out focus to everybody near you, and suddenly, your already good gun on Vincent and potentially on other models is wonderful because you have the action compression that Blasphemous Ritual allows. I wish, even for a second, I could pulse out focus. But it is not allowed for Explorers, which I get. There's a reason for that. What else are we looking at in the crew? We're looking at the Ghost Eater. I don't understand this guy. I'm going to be saying that a lot about Reva's models, I think. But he helps you out when you spend Soul Stones. He's got Hard to Wound. He gives you the ability to summon some crappy minions that then help draw cards. There is some goofy, silly stuff, but he's also just got a 12-inch Spirit Barrage, right? Gun, 6 willpower, 12 inches. 2-3-4 with dismember, allowing you to get that corpse up the field that you often need. And then if you have got a ghost light in position, wonderful. Kill the ghost light, get a benefit. Let's take a look at the ghost lights for just a moment. And then we will talk a little bit about one versatile model that I think synergizes well with a lot of what's going on here. So the thing about the ghost lights is they've got this ability to consume soul. You can kill them and gain a soul stone. When someone uses a soul stone, right, they are like a soul stone generator, basically. Other than that, they're kind of just a tool, right? They're not going to produce any markers when they die, but you've got tools to use them on the Ghost Eater, so that even though they cost 3, they don't really, right? Who cares? The thing about Rezzers, and the reason why, even if they don't have card draw, it's kind of okay for them to go for a really card-heavy strategy, in my opinion, is they have access to the Whisper. Intuition is a disgusting ability. I feel like stapling Intuition onto a card that can go onto a master is probably causing some issues in the Rezzers faction generally. Like, all the masters have to be sort of built or think about the fact that, okay, they can Intuition at the start of their turn. And that is very much like drawing 3 cards, right? And you'll note that, like, it's not drawing 3 cards. You don't get to save them and use them exactly where you would like. But for many models, that foreknowledge is incredible. And I think it's never truer than when you're looking at a model like Vincent, where Sanctified Crossbow, Critical Strike, you have... If you flip the nuts on Vincent, you are potentially looking at, okay, I spend a stone, I kill a ghost light, I get the stone back, I shoot somebody... I flip a high ram, let's say a 12, right? You're stat 6. So that is already, a lot of people are going to have a trouble getting to an 18, let alone beating it. So you're on an 18 and you say, okay, well, I know what the next card's coming up. If you see the red Joker on Intuition ever, you are just hitting someone for 7 damage and it's almost uninteractable. Now, how often is that going to happen? Well, if you get 5 turns with 2 Intuition models, that means you are seeing 30 cards. You are very likely to see the red Joker and another useful card at least once. And if the red Joker is not useful, is not like arranged perfectly with another severe, you can always cheat in from your hand on the first card. Like, Intuition gives you so much power. And I really value it. And part of the reason I value it is because I've been playing a lot of Winston Finnegan lately, and Fortune's Favor does it like credible Intuition. I'm going to pretend to be Intuition thing with some benefits and some misses, but I think it's worth thinking about how good Intuition is on these models. I've also been told that my opponent is somewhat likely to bring good old Anna Lovelace from the Rezzers faction. I'm not too fussed about this. Hostile Work Environment and Gravity Well do make it hard to get your models out of her zone. It makes it harder for you to, like, bounce blasts off of your own models in the case of using bow to stagger a bunch of people. It makes it harder to use Maxine's bonus action in order to extract her from a bad situation. But often with Maxine, if I'm going in, I don't know, who cares? Like, I anticipate that she will, like, trigger her demise. So that's fine. I'm not, as long as I can get in the first place, that's fine. I'm bringing Orville flies. Other than that, I don't have, like, a lot of place effects. So Gravity Well, unlikely to be super important. Hostile Work Environment, definitely always important. I got to remember I can't heal with any of my models off of targeted healing. So that brings us through all that. I've got a couple crews that I might be looking at, like a kind of standard Maxine Agassi build, Maxine 2. This is very close to a build that Grogdog brought in the round of 32 in the MWS. I'll talk about that a little bit later. A little less standard, in my opinion, dropping the botanist and the Effigy of Fate for Jesse Halliday and Winston Finnegan. Winston kind of replaces the Tidecaller a lot of the times. In a lot of Maxine lists, your Tidecaller has an actually kind of restrictive number of friendly models it can throw. Like the Tidecaller can throw Bo and Maxine and the Botanist, and then that's about it. And you really only want to throw Bo and Maxine. And often that's good enough. Like that's 2 targets, good enough, if the map allows it. Winston, on the other hand, he is equally restricted, but he brings an extra card per turn. He gives you that pseudo intuition effect in Form of Fortune's favor. He's got Drought Secrets on his melee. He's got Don't Mind Me and Celebrity, a wonderful combination, especially on an ensnare pool. And he's got Price of Progress is just awesome for consistency. I love Price of Progress. The more I play with Syndicate models, the more I think it's just an extremely powerful ability. So like, yes, the Tidecaller can fling Maxine up 10 inches and then she has like sort of free range. Winston only moves her forward like 5 inches, but often she does not need to go 10 inches in order to be valuable. And on some maps, Winston Finnegan has the potential to be kind of unkillable by gun. I think this might be one of those maps. Orville also helps out with that. The combination of Luck Thief and the ability to grant concealing or provide concealing is awesome. Jesse's Heroes of Flutter. Like I said, I'm kind of afraid of some of the pseudo shockwave effects. She's size 2, which I think is valuable on this map in a way that I don't always consider size 2 to be like, ooh, that's good, size 2. But I'm thinking more and more about like the Tidecaller size being a drawback on the map we're looking at. Additionally, she's got the ability to do some marker removal, quite good. And then she has got a gun, which is the same range as the longest guns on the enemy team, targets defense, which is the stat you want to be targeting against them, and has the potential to pull them 6 inches out of position. You pull a model 6 inches out of position, and then Hand of Janus or even Beeb and Calypso get to hit it, especially if it's already activated. You're extremely excited about that. I also, not worth nothing, think Soulstone Flare is just a great ability, and I think I've not rated in the past, but Shockwave 2, crazy number, crazy size. Lastly, sort of in the extremely eccentric department, what is the fewest number of EVS models you need to be like effective on Maxine Agassi Monomaniacal? And the answer is, I think, 3. I think as long as you have hit that, you're good. Now, notably, I am not bringing Bo, which is probably a mistake in this list. But I was having some conversations with folks about like, what are the alternative models you can bring that have a lot of additional benefit in this pool and against folks. And Uller and Model 9 or Uller and the Rex came up. Uller and Model 9 feel like against enemy shooting, they're just going to have a lot of benefit. And they give you access to a size 2 armor 2. Now your willpower is bad, your defense is fine. Like, but that's just the explorer's way, isn't it? Like 6'5", that's the way of it. Probably there should be Bo instead of the Botanist and the Hopeful Prospect rather, but I'm still noodling on what the final look on this would be. I do want to talk about the Hopeful Prospect a little bit. All this conversation has me thinking about him more and more. Ending Conditions is good. It is valuable offensively and defensively. Now, you're probably never going to get him within 4 inches of anybody and have a good time. His gun is a longer range than any of the guns that the enemy can bring, which is sort of funny. And Blissful Ignorance, honestly, again, one of those abilities that the more you play it, the more you like it. You do have to be cautious with them, but in many cases, card cycling is great. Early card draw is card cycling in Malifaux because you're often, if you draw on your first activation, for example, you may not be able to empty your hand in a way that's effective that lets you use those low cards successfully. So if you just Blissful Ignorance instead, hey, that's just as good. All right, it's 25 minutes already. I want to take a look at the map before I finally settle on what I want to play. So as mentioned, we're looking at In Your Face, Deliver a Message, Information Overload, Protected Territory, and Snare. I expect just about no one is going to be looking at information overload. I think in your face is highly conditional. I think we are very likely to be in a deliver a message pool with either protected territory and ensnare. A lot of people I have heard say that protected territory is like the best scheme running to do right now, because it takes like your consummate scheme runners, like your botanists, your Kruligans, whoever. It takes them 2 AP to score each point, right? They just go, they score it, they're fine. Deliver a message takes 2 AP similarly, but you are exposing yourself instead of moving to a place where you expect your opponent not to be. And then in your face is good just because of the way it warps, I think, people's lists and people's behavior. Who knows? I'm probably going to give up. I'm probably going to lose to my opponent really outscoring me here. I'm not historically good on strategies like Vault, and I'm still very much getting back into Malifaux, but I wanted to give it a shot. So I ended up taking the South deployment on this. I've seen a lot of people talk about how strong the West deployment is, kind of giving your opponent this big chunky building in the East. I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to keep this left line open. I think fighting up this left side is very good for explorers. They have a lot of models that care about parking themselves in severe over here or here. And that's like nice to have that out and about. I think this every single deployment zone is kind of restrictive, but for explorers, the bottom zone is not very restrictive at all, especially if you consider bringing Alpinist. And even if not, like, you just park your models sort of down here, and you do some tossing, and you move on with your life. Like, if my opponent shows up with Vincent and they want to shoot his 10-inch gun, right, they have to move up 10 inches. That gives me enough time to be in cover, of which there's ample cover. The vaults help. Of course, they're height 5 blocking. We've got tons of height 2 buildings, and this is actually where that conversation I had earlier comes in. These 6 height 2 buildings really have me thinking about how strong being height 2 is on this map, because having the ability to park your size 1 and size 2 models in a position here where it is just impossible for Vincent to shoot them without granting them cover is great. Even though my opponent is bringing mostly willpower facing guns, the neg flip on damage is still really good. Like, think about how many models pay to get hard to wound attached to them, and if you can do that via positioning, that's even better. When I'm thinking about what I expect my opponent to do on this map in terms of their schemes and strategies, I think Reva can definitely do in your face. I would not be at all surprised. So it is sort of important that if I end up bringing Hand of Janus, Winston, or Tidecaller, that I respect that decision from them. I think In Your Face is a little bit opened up even further for them, because they've got a couple models which are non-gun ranged attacks or just ignore friendly fire. There is an option here to like bring Maxine 1 and Hand of Janus and like kind of present a counter gun line. I just don't. You could maybe drown the enemy crew under weight of cards for that. I just don't think I am the player for that. So instead, my probable position here is going to be to start my models down center, using Orville, Tidecaller, and Bow to shove them forward such that Maxine is a convenient striking distance away, such that she can bonus, charge, hit at the bottom of the round if possible. While we are getting set up for that, we will use Bo Fishbacher to cycle some cards. We will use Winston if we bring him to set up some cards. We'll use Dr. Beeb to ensure we have some low tomes in hand. And, you know, one of the things to remember on Maxine, too, is deep discovery means you should keep an eye on the top of your opponent's discard, so there may come an opportunity earlier. Orville is definitely exposed here. A single focus kills him on a lot of these models when they shoot him, so Orville needs to not just be relying on sputtering exhaust, but also taking advantage of the fact that he too is size 2 and that he can squat in a lot of safe places. I've considered Yaksha on this map. There's a fun route up the left side for Yaksha to be very valuable, but they die to shooting. And unlike a lot of the other models, Yaksha cannot do their job and sort of position using dense cover to block line of sight. So you have to do all your line of sight blocking with the actual blocking buildings. Not so good. Now, I think there is probably a route to sending a Yaksha up the right side. You're gonna get 2 value leaps off. You're gonna get you'll have the opportunity to do protected territory. I expect my opponent is not gonna put any kind of useful or valuable model over here. And that sort of saves me a card over sending a botanist up the right side. Now there is a chance he like parks someone here to try and shoot over stuff, but that seems like a fool's errand. So ultimately what we're probably looking at is a botanist or other 5-point low investment model that can go screaming up the right side, Beeb Calypso to go shooting up the left side, taking advantage of the blocking terrain here and here. They cannot. This dense terrain is a little awkward for B and C, not because it slows them down because they have all terrain, but rather because they can't. Their base is too big to fit on the other side of it and use it for line of sight blocking. They can park exactly here, but your opponent needs to push forward onto these vaults by the end of turn 2, so that doesn't do as much as one would hope. Now they're going to have concealment, but they're not going to line of sight blocked, and that's something. Especially, armor 2, that may be good enough. Meanwhile, while like let's say these 2 models are moving up on the flanks, we have if we run, let's say we're running this set right here, we've probably got Orville tucked in nicely here. Alongside Bo, Bo having used lead by the hand to move Maxine forward, and then the question is simply like how far can we threaten with Maxine? And the answer is quite a ways. So you've got 5 inches and change off of this plus 7 inches. So she's got like a 12-inch charge effectively. A lot of the time you're not going to use that. So like if we do end up here. And keep in mind, she's not going to have cover for whenever she arrives here. She could, if we do it correctly, have concealing from Orville, which is nice. I'm using Dr. Beavis' shockwave here. If she hops over here, that puts her on the center line. That opens her up for a couple cool things. And then following her up from to like kind of support, probably putting Tidecaller either into cover and concealing here, while the Hand of Janus sort of like dirtles forward a little bit, probably up behind here, coming from the bottom left. Now, this is a little complicated because you have a lot of models that you want to grant bonus movement for. And you got a couple tools for that. Like you've got Maxine's Shockwave, but she's often very greedy about that, especially the way I play her. So what often ends up happening is Tidecaller gives 2 moves out to small models, usually Bo and Maxine. Bo themselves gives 2 lead the ways out, usually to Hand of Janus and Tidecaller. And then Orville is probably going to charge Calypso or somebody else. So figuring out the exact details of the unpack is going to be a little hinky if you want to do everything you want to do. But one of the things to keep in mind is the reason Orville has Up We Go is not just to displace the opponent models, which is like a fun thing that this crew is very good at, but it is to give a boost to your armor 1 and armor 2, armor 1 and shielded constructs. So like someone is going to need to feed a botanist if I bring a botanist, right? And I don't know how that works. So that may be the argument for what ultimately would make me consider a Yaksha for real to run up this right side is I need someone who can run without being fed a scheme. Especially because this door is too small for a 40 millimeter under my reckoning. So the botanist has to start here, which means the scheme has to be dropped. If Orville starts here, he would have to drop the scheme here. And yes, he could then charge, hit somebody else, reposition up behind that building. But then you are investing a card into a mask into Orville getting repositioned into a good position. And that's not really what you want. So there's maybe just a little too many pieces here for good old bot to do what we want him to do, but it's definitely worth a thought. So we could start like this, drop the scheme so the bot can see it and eat it. We can start Maxine. We always want to keep Bo behind the behind folks. So maybe we just start like this is our unpack, right? And then we would have Orville charge the Hand of Janus and toss him up while repositioning into a nice position. Bo then gets to go and lead the Tidecaller forward. This probably requires Maxine to be someplace slightly different, but let's say Bo leads the Tidecaller forward, then gets to lead the Hand of Janus forward, gets to position such that these two 50 millimeter size 4 bases are they would probably are going to form a wall to give him some protection. And like then we have a the problem here then is that like how's the Tidecaller going to actually throw Maxine effectively, toss Maxine effectively? So like the unpack on this crew has a lot of ordering issues to it, and it's a thing that like if you can reduce that by 1 or 2 pieces, that's better. So that's part of the reason why a botanist, which has to go after whoever has the cheapest AP to drop a scheme, is definitely a thing here, right? And then like the Tidecaller needs to, if it gets positioned by Orville, like whichever of these big armored units gets positioned by Orville needs to then be able to get a hand from Bo, and that's going to limit their ability to then do the ultimately what the Tidecaller's job is ultimately to move Maxine. It helps to move Bo and other people, but like that's the real goal. So maybe there's an argument for an Alpinist here. Ultimately, I think I'm going to have to make those decisions pretty shortly here. I've got my game in under 12 hours, so I'm going to go get some rest. But I'm probably going to put in a list right away. I think I'm favoring Winston very strongly here. I often do. And I think I might have convinced myself to give a Yaksha another try and just take advantage of this hugely protective blocking building here. And then the ability of the Yaksha to get its leap without needing anyone to help it. So we'll see how that goes. I'm hopeful to record the game as well, and I will let you all know how it goes.